Mourinho has just made the most brutal decision taken at Real Madrid in decades. He has expelled Mbappe, expelled two other starters, and for Mbappe's spot, he has already chosen Erling Halland, the most lethal striker on the planet. 3 out, 3 in, a total revolution. And this is just the beginning, because Mourinho didn't arrive at the Santiago Bernabéu to manage what was already there. He arrived to destroy it and build something new from the ground up. He arrived with a list in hand, Florentino Perez's signature behind him, with absolute carte blanche to decide who deserves to wear the white shirt and who doesn't. And the first thing he did, before meeting the dressing room, before running a single training session, before giving his first press conference, was to point at 3 players and tell the president of the biggest club in the world, not these 3. These 3 leave in the next transfer window. And if they don't leave, I leave. Florentino said yes. Total carte blanche. Mourinho is in charge. First on that list, the one Mourinho pointed at most harshly, the one who generated the most explosive conversation between the new manager and the president, is Kylian Mbappe. And for his replacement, Mourinho didn't hesitate for a single second. He wants Erling Halland, out with a player who earns 25 million euros a year and strolls around the pitch when the team is struggling, and with a player who runs, who presses, who destroys defenses and scores goals when a match is decided and when it isn't. That's the swap. That's Mourinho's message to the Madridismo from the very first minute of his tenure. But there's more, much more, because the other 2 players Mourinho wants on Madrid are 2 names that are going to shake this club from top to bottom. All the names, all the figures, all the scandal is right here in this video. I promise you that if you stay until the end, you'll understand exactly why this is the most important transformation Real Madrid has undergone in the last 20 years. Don't move. Do you know what it means that Mourinho arrived at Madrid with this attitude? Do you know what it means that the new manager's very first move is to point at the most expensive player in the squad and say he doesn't want him? It means something has truly changed at this club. It means Florentino has finally understood that Madrid's problem isn't tactical, physical, or about the schedule. Madrid's problem is one of character, of attitude, of players who think they're bigger than the institution. And Mourinho, who saw that problem from the very first analysis he did of the squad, decided to cut at the root before it poisoned another season. Mbappe out, Halland in. That's the first thing you need to know. That's what Mourinho put on the table and what Florentino accepted. Let's start with Mbappe, because to understand Mourinho's decision, you first need to understand what happened with Mbappe at Madrid. And what happened is exactly what half the Madridismo feared when that signing was completed. Mbappe arrived at the Bernabéu, believing the club owed him something, believing his mere presence was a gift Real Madrid should thank him for on its knees, believing the rules that apply to every other player, the sacrifice, the discipline, the submission to collective, didn't apply to him because he was Kylian Mbappe, and that placed him in a different category. The team paid for that misconception for months. The fans paid for it. Florentino paid for it. Forced to endure season after season of rumors, leaked information and attitudes coming out of the dressing room that painted an increasingly uncomfortable picture. Let's talk about what we all saw with our own eyes. Let's talk about the matches, because in the end, above dressing rooms and attitudes and boardroom conversations, what matters is what happens on the pitch. And what happened on the pitch with Mbappe was, for me as a Madridista, one of the most frustrating experiences of recent years. Think about the big nights. Think about the Champions League matches where Madrid needed a goal, where the team was suffering, where the Bernabéu stands were about to explode with tension and needed to see their star grab the match by the collar and settle it. What did Mbappe do on those nights? He disappeared. He walked. He stood still waiting for the perfect ball that never comes, wearing the body language of a player who considers himself above everything happening around him. Meanwhile, the team suffered, lost ground, lost confidence, and the fans stared at the white number 9 wondering where the player was who was going to raise his club's level. He didn't show up. Not on the nights that mattered. Not when Madrid truly needed him. And on top of that, what drives me most mad, what is, in my opinion, unforgivable in a player earning what Mbappe earns, is a lack of defensive effort. 25 million euros a year, over 2 million euros a month, for a player who, when the opponent has the ball, becomes a spectator in a white shirt, who doesn't press, Mourinho saw that from the very first video analysis image of a player committed to collective work, and the conclusion was immediate. Any team wanted to win that type of player requires the one who only works when he has the ball and when things are going well, who vanishes when the team suffers and reappears when the match is settled to claim the glory, is incompatible with the football Mourinho wants to build at Madrid. Incompatible. No exceptions, no negotiation, no second chance. But there's something more, something that goes beyond what you see on the pitch and that Mourinho valued even above sporting performance. It's the dressing room question. Because the damage Mbappe caused inside Madrid's dressing room, the silent poison that spread through relationships between players and the coaching staff, between the group and the board, that damage is what weighed most heavily in Mourinho's decision. Information held by sources close to the club describes an Mbappe who attempted to influence decisions that weren't his to make, an Mbappe who openly questioned tactical systems, an Mbappe who created factions inside the dressing room, building dynamics of those who are with him and those who aren't. That pattern, that way of operating, is exactly the same one he had at PSG, and PSG took far too long to stop it. Madrid under Mourinho will not make the same mistake. Look at what happened at PSG when Mbappe left. PSG won the Champions League. The team that for years had been the most expensive in the world, that had assembled the best players on the planet, that had spent billions without being able to win the European Cup. That team won the Champions League in a year Mbappe was no longer there. Coincidence? Mourinho doesn't believe in coincidences when they repeat with such consistency. Neither do I. In my opinion, and someone convinced me otherwise, Mbappe is the type of player who makes the teams he plays for worse than they would be without him. Not because he lacks talent, he has plenty, but because the collective cost of having him far outweighs the individual benefit he provides. And in modern football, where titles are won by teams and not soloists, that is a luxury Real Madrid cannot afford. Mourinho understood it. Florentino accepted it, and the operation to get Mbappe out of Madrid is underway. The figures circulating suggest Madrid would negotiate the Frenchman's exit for around 110 million euros. 110 million to shed the highest salary in the squad, to free up the space in the dressing room he poisons, and to reinvest that money in the player Mourinho truly wants. And now comes the part that gets my heart racing. Now comes the name replacing Mbappe, Erling Halland. When Mourinho placed that name on the table in front of Florentino, the Real Madrid president didn't need it explained to him. Florentino has been following Halland for years. Madrid came close to signing him when he left Dortmund. He knows perfectly well what that player means for any team that has him, and he knows that Halland at Madrid, with the system Mourinho wants to implement, with the players who will surround him, is a combination that makes every defense in Europe tremble. Halland is everything Mbappe is not in terms of talent, because both have plenty, but in terms of what they bring to the team beyond the ball. Halland runs when he has the ball. Halland presses from the front, chases the opposing goalkeeper, closes passing lanes, does the dirty work no star striker wants to do, and that is fundamental to Mourinho's football. Halland walks into a dressing room and generates respect, not tension. The operation won't be simple. Manchester City knows Halland's value, I promise you there was more, and won't let him leave without a fight. I promise you the other two information from club circles other two arriving total operation in this video in the region. It's time to reveal 190 the second name on Mourinho's exit transfer fee is one add-ons and contract part of the Madridismo. An enormous sum. He's a player many have defended. One Madrid is prepared to pay. One the press has handled with kid gloves. One who has been forgiven too much for too long. And Mourinho, who has no time for politics or feelings, has pointed at him with the same coldness he pointed at Mbappe. That player is Aurelien Tchouaméni. I know some Madridistas are going to frown at this. Tchouaméni is not a problematic player in the way Mbappe is. He doesn't create conflict in the dressing room. He doesn't question the manager. He doesn't try to influence decisions that aren't his to make. In that sense, he's a decent professional. But Mourinho isn't just looking for decent professionals. Mourinho is looking for players who dominate their position at the absolute elite of world football. Tchouaméni, with all the respect he deserves as a professional, is not at that level. He doesn't have the reading of the game that Madrid's pivot needs to control big matches. He doesn't have the ability to make the decisive tackle in critical moments. He doesn't have the leadership that position demands when the team is struggling and someone needs to restore order. Madrid is asking around 80 million euros for Tchouaméni. $80 million that will be reinvested in the player Mourinho has requested as the second major signing of the new project. And that signing is one that will have Madridistas across Spain and from Los Angeles to New York jumping off their sofas to applaud. Mourinho wants Rodri, Spain's pivot, the Ballon d'Or winner, the brain that guided the national team to the European title, the player Guardiola has spent years describing as the most important in his system. Rodri at Madrid isn't a signing. It's a statement of intent. It's Mourinho telling the world that the new Madrid will be a team that controls, that dominates, that dictates the rhythm of matches from the center of the pitch. With Rodri at pivot, Madrid has the engine it was missing. The operation to bring Rodri in is ambitious. Club circles point to a negotiation that could exceed 130 million euros. 130 million for the best pivot in the world, for the player who will transform Madrid's midfield the same way Halland will transform the attack. The mathematical operation of this transfer window starts making sense when you see the numbers together. Mbappe out for 110 million, Tchouaméni out for 80 million, Halland in for 190 million, Rodri in for 130 million. Madrid needs to put up the difference, which in gross terms amounts to around 130 million additional euros. An enormous investment, but a coherent one. An investment that isn't spending but transformation. And then there's the third move, the one that closes a revolution. The third player Mourinho wants out is the one who will divide the Madridismo most, the one who will generate the most comments, the one who will spark the biggest debate. Mourinho wants Jude Bellingham gone. Breathe. I know it's a tough blow for many. Bellingham arrived at Madrid 2 seasons ago as one of the most exciting signings in years. 140 million euros for a 20-year-old with physical and technical qualities that made you think you were watching the future captain of Madrid for the next decade. But Mourinho has seen something in Bellingham that worries him more than his on-pitch performance. He has seen the same behavioral patterns that lead dressing rooms into chaos. He has seen a player who, as his fame has grown, has adopted attitudes that don't fit what Mourinho needs in his team. Open questioning of tactical decisions, a consistent tendency to look for the causes of poor results outside himself, a mentality that is starting to look too much like that of other players who passed through Madrid believing they were bigger than the club. Mourinho has decided to cut it now, while Bellingham's market value is still high, before the problem grows and becomes impossible to manage. Madrid is asking around 160 million euros for Bellingham, a figure that practically recovers the initial investment and allows reinvestment in the third signing Mourinho has requested to complete the revolution. That third signing is Ibrahima Konate, Liverpool centre-back, 1.93M of pure defensive power, 25 years old, one of the best centre-back partnerships in the Premier League alongside Van Dijk, quick, dominant in the air, with an anticipation ability that places him in the world elite at his position. Mourinho wants Konate because he has identified defensive fragility as one of Madrid's biggest problems in big matches. He has seen that the team has conceded too many goals it shouldn't have. And Mourinho, who has always built his winning teams on a defensive foundation as solid as a rock, cannot accept that fragility. The operation to bring in Konate would be around 90 million euros, according to sources closest to negotiations. Think about the 11 Mourinho is building. Think about Madrid with Halland up front, Rodri at pivot directing the game. This is a half defense putting things in order. It's a total reset. A team that has a new Madrid and defensive-based Madrid that rediscovers needs hunger, to implement his discipline. A team that has the most lethal striker on the planet to settle matches. That's what Mourinho once the collective work. That's what Florentino bought with his carte blanche. And that's what the Madridismo has been demanding for far too long. A Madrid with character, with discipline, with a manager who places a group above any name, any ego, any media figure who thinks the club belongs to them. Mourinho has already won at this club. Mourinho knows what needs to be done for Bernabeu to truly vibrate again. Not the artificial vibration of social media and Mbappe's Instagram posts, but the real vibration of a team that wins when it needs to win, that fights when it needs to fight, and that on European nights makes the rest of Europe tremble. That vibration is coming back with Halland up front, Rodri in the center, Konate in defense, and without Mbappe, without Tchouaméni, and without Bellingham occupying spots that others deserve more. The revolution has begun, and from Bernabeu to Miami, from Madrid to Los Angeles, Every Madridista who has been swallowing their frustration for months now has a reason to believe again. Now it's your turn, because I want to know what you think. Do you agree with the 3 departures Mourinho has requested, or is there a name that doesn't convince you? Bellingham out, or would you give him one more season with the new manager? And will Halland truly succeed at Madrid, or do you think the Bernabeu doesn't suit his profile? Tell me everything in the comments right now. If you want to be the first to know how these negotiations develop, activate the bell right now. Like the video if you think Mourinho is exactly what this Madrid needed. The revolution has started.